Yes, this is DJ Ski.
I'm Jeff Wilson.
Hey guys, Andy Broom, Vice President of CGC Cards.
Hey, this is Jason Howarth with Panini.
Yo, I'm Q Harrison.
Hey gang, this is Tom Verrilli. I'm the Chief Product Officer at Whatnot.
This is Teapot from Sports Card Investor.
This is Adam Rips with VFriends.
What's up? This is Aaron from Slab Stocks.
Hey, this is Clark from 5 Card Guys and the Cards to the Moon podcast.
Hey guys, this is Jay with Wild Card.
What's up everyone? This is Duke Dodson from Graybows.
What's up everybody? This is Chris Kelsey from Nash Cards.
What's up everyone? This is Mark Hill from My Card Post.
This is Ray Schulte.
This is Chase Krim.
This is Cody from Texas Roadshow Shop.
This is Mark Aaron from WSB Radio in Atlanta, and you're listening to the Sports Card Strategy Show.
I'm loving the content.
Loving the content here.
I'm loving the content here on the Sports Card Strategy Show.
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 And I'm telling you, the Sports Card Strategy Show.
This is the Sports Card Strategy Show with your man, Paul Hickey. What's good?
Be sure to subscribe for year-round advice on keeping your portfolio up to date.
Part of the NoOffSeason.com Sports Card Network, the #1 place for advice on how to make money flipping sports cards. Thanks for tuning in, and remember, there is no off-season.
There is no off-season.
There is no off-season.
And there's no off-season.
You already know, there is no off-season.
No off-season!
All right, you ready to rock?
Ready to go.
When you get into this game, the reason why you pay someone like Paul Hickey to get your sports card strategy together is because sometimes when you're starting out, you need perspective, you need wisdom, you need insights. And so he's been around the track enough times where he can actually coach you up and guide you. Doesn't mean he's going to take you to the promised land tomorrow, but you now have a coach by your side that can advise and kind of even create these pathways where you can get the education yourself. And that's a lot better than thugging it out on your own. Thugging it out on your own.
What? The kids better buy my rookie card now, because after this year, the price ain't coming down.
Welcome in, everybody. I'm your host, Paul Hickey. It's time to sit back, listen, learn, and earn with me on the Sports Card Strategy Show. You're here to make money flipping sports cards. Do you want to thug it out on your own, like Q Harrison said in the intro? Or do you want to come alongside me and get my help at nooffseason.com and the Sports Card Strategy Show? Thanks, everybody, for joining. Really appreciate you being here with me on this Monday, December 9th. Happy to be doing it here with all of you today. And whether you're sick of wasting money in breaks, whether your kids are having fun in the hobby and you're wondering what's in it for you, or whether you've been flipping sports cards for a long time making money, we're going to get into it and I'm going to help you out. Today, we're going to talk about top sports card selling markers of 2025. That's right. We always say don't even consider buying a card without a clear selling marker in mind. And today we're going to anticipate some of the top selling markers of 2025 in general. And we're going to cross-reference that with some historical data, of course, from 2024 and the past. Juan Soto is a New York Met. Apologies to any of you who are saddened by that news. Maybe you wanted him to return to the Yankees. Maybe you had another team in mind. The New York Mets snag Juan Soto. We'll talk about that real quick a little bit later. I've got Caitlin Clark, Shohei Ohtani, and Michael Jordan plays I'm looking at making, so we're going to get into those. And there's some news from PSA that was reported by some other content creators who talked to Nat Turner last week, so I want to dig into some of that. PSA pop data integrated into eBay and potentially the ability to start sending raw cards directly from eBay to PSA might be coming. Very, very interesting. But let's talk about another grading company real quick, CGC Cards. Are you ready to start grading your cards? CGC Cards is the perfect place to slab your favorite sports cards. From their crystal clear holders to their affordable pricing, CGC Cards is the perfect stop for your grading needs. Go to cgccards.com to start grading today. If you're a premium member at nooffseason.com, remember that you can ask the grader. And Andy Broom, the vice president of CGC Cards, answers your questions to ask the grader on the premium podcast at nooffseason.com. Go to nooffseason.com/ask to ask the grader. Also, remember, we've got our Black Friday, Cyber Monday. Every day is an awesome day pricing through the end of the year, through December 31st at nooffseason.com right now. You still get that free 30-day trial, but go to nooffseason.com if you're not a premium member to sign up now for that free 30-day trial and lock in that discounted pricing after your free 30-day trial. And breaking news, everybody, breaking news. We have lowered the members-only grading fee to $22 per card, limited time only. That's right. If you've been thinking about grading with nooffseason.com, I've now lowered it. Limited time only, $22 per card now. It used to be $25. So go in, get your submissions in. Go to card grading at nooffseason.com to get those submissions in. All right. Friendly reminder as well. If you haven't gotten rid of your Panini Instant and Topps Now PSA graded NFL cards, so we're talking about the Malik Neighbors, the Xavier Worthies, the Caleb Williamses, the Jaden Danielses, the Bo Nixuses, even the Drake Mays. You got to get those fuckers listed right now, everybody, because, or at least as soon as possible. I know some of you are probably still waiting on your grades back from PSA. That's fine. List them as soon as you get them back. Or if you don't have them graded with me and you got them at PSA right now, trigger it to list on eBay. We talked about how to do this on last Wednesday's Sports Card Strategy Show full episode with Lefty and I. So go check that out. Definitely go check that out, because if you've got like the Drake May Topps Now waiting at PSA, for example, it's just one example. Or you got any Jaden Daniels Panini Instant or Topps Now waiting at PSA. You're waiting and they're in your PSA account and you've got the ship to me defaulted. I would consider listing those on eBay through PSA. Just, you got to get them listed. The reason why is because the prices will dip as more football 2024 releases come out for these rookie players. The 2024 rookies are going to have more releases come out. It's happening week over week over week from both companies. And so you want to get these earlier releases, especially these print-on-demand releases, listed. If you got raw ones sitting around, what are you doing? List them. Put them in auctions. Get them gone. All right. Let's get into some of the news I alluded to with PSA. Props to Sports Card Investor and Neo Cards and Comics for kind of breaking this news with Nat Turner last week. One was that PSA population data is going to be integrated into eBay listings soon. This is courtesy of Sports Card Investor. And it looks like basically when you're looking at buying a card on the app or on the desktop version of eBay, you're going to start to see some population data from PSA, which is sweet. I mean, that's just, honestly, is just a shortcut and it's efficiency. I love efficiency. Efficiency is huge for what we're trying to do as entrepreneurs in the hobby. All of us are entrepreneurs in the hobby. We're trying to grind, trying to make money flipping sports cards. It's super fun, but there's a lot to it. It can be time consuming. So efficiencies gained. Props to PSA and eBay for that integration. I haven't personally seen it yet, but I'll probably see it soon. Maybe some of you have already seen it in your eBay searches. Okay. Also, PSA instant offers. So we talked about PSA instant offers last week on the Sports Card Strategy Show. And then we also saw that Neo Cards and Comics had interviewed Nat Turner, and Nat Turner talked with them about it. And, props to Neo Cards and Comics for talking to Nat Turner and getting a little bit more information. So if you want more information from Nat Turner, go check out Neo Cards and Comics on Instagram. There's underscores in between the name. But Lefty and I knew about it. We talked about it on last week's episode. Pretty fascinating that PSA will make offers on your cards right now. I mean, I don't think they're making offers on all cards I mean, I think if you have crappy cards, they're probably not interested in them. But if you have a card that PSA thinks it can sell on their eBay account, they're probably going to make you an offer at a particular percentage of comps and try to flip it themselves. And so I saw somebody made a comment on this, like, PSA basically taking advantage of the consumer, blah, blah, blah. Not really. I mean, PSA is, look, why? So if like a card shop does that, a vendor at a card show does that. So why is PSA any different when they're going to make offers to buy our cards from our PSA vault? And yeah, they're going to make money off of it, but that's no different than what any of us do on a daily basis when we're setting up at vendors at card shows. We're making offers on cards when people approach our tables. And the offers we're making are going to put us in a position where we can make money on those cards. So why can't PSA do it? I mean, we live in a capitalist society and we are here trying to make money. And so why should we fault PSA for coming up with another potential revenue stream? Derek Hagan, premium member at nooffseason.com, said he sold his Joe Burrow rookie card to PSA last week. So Derek, let us know. I mean, did you profit on that? And then it'd be interesting to track, like, what does PSA sell that for? I think props to PSA for integrating that. That's another efficiency. That's another thing. I mean, because listing it on eBay is gonna take 7 to 10 more days before we potentially realize that profit, according to Neo Cards and Comics and nooffseason.com and Lefty McKee of nooffseason.com. PSA is making you offers. According to me, Paul Hickey, I don't have a problem with it. Do you have a problem with it? Drop a comment below at youtube.com/Paul Hickey or comment on any of our Sports Card Strategy posts on Instagram at Sports Card Strategy. Just let me know. Let me know what you think. Just be like, hey, I heard you talking about this PSA offers thing. I think it's BS. Or be like, hey, no, love it. Why not? You can always decline the offer. It's an offer. It's like anyone else offering you something for your card. So why would you be mad about that? So PSA instant offers. I love it. I think it's great. It's the same thing as a local card shop. We're not mad at our local card shops for making offers on cards. That's what they're there for. So PSA kind of inserting themselves in the hobby, creating another revenue stream. Now, this next thing I want to talk about real quick is something that Neo Cards and Comics talked to Nat Turner about, and that is the ability to grade your raw card purchases from eBay. And I like the way that they phrase this. They say, is this something you would use, or do you want the card in hand first? This could change the game for speed to the market with the abilities to relist to eBay directly from the PSA vault. In theory, yes, that's true. In theory, what this is, and he's not, the thing I like about Neo Cards and Comics in this particular situation, and I don't know Neo Cards and Comics. I've never met him or them or whatever, but I did see this in my Instagram feed, and I typically don't do this. I typically look at my Instagram feed and I'm like, oh my God, I hate this stuff. But props to Neo Cards and Comics, because for some reason, this popped up in my Instagram feed over the weekend, and I was like, you know what? Great content. Great content. And I said, I'm going to talk about this on Monday's Sports Card Strategy Show. So here we are. Now, I'm going to give my take, then I'm going to go give some live chat love, maybe try to get some of your takes. Drop a comment below at youtube.com/Paul Hickey. If you're listening on Apple and Spotify, you can comment on Spotify. Did you know that? Spotify listeners, you can comment on Spotify. So leave a 5-star review, comment. Let me know what you think about the ability to grade your raw card purchases from eBay. Now, this is something that Lefty and I have talked about already. It's not like this is a foreign concept to us, but the fact that Neo talked to Nat Turner about it turned it from a idea now all of a sudden into something that might happen. And so I can tell you from my experience, my in-depth, heavy experience grading cards at PSA that this is going to be tempting, but this is going to be extremely, extremely risky and potentially fraught with issues for us, the consumers of these cards. Because I've submitted cards that were not authentic, that I thought were authentic. I submitted cards that were authentic but were altered. I made all these mistakes at the beginning of my PSA submissions. I submitted cards that I thought would get an 8, 9, or 10, and they were like a 4, and they were a little bit more vintage. I submitted ultra modern cards that I thought were a 10, but they were disgusting, and they got like a 7 or an 8 for one reason or another. And so I put myself through the ringer for the first couple years that I was doing this. And that's why I'm good at it now. And that's why we've had success as a business, because we've documented our journey of making these mistakes. And we've documented all the things that it takes to win and weed out how to lose and narrowly focus on the things that win, right? And go deep on the narrow focus. And I tell you this to say that PSA ability to start sending raw cards directly from eBay to PSA, there may be some massive wins on speed to the market, but you still got to pick the right card for the right player at the right time. This would be a tool in our toolbox, in our toolkit. This would be another simple screwdriver, drill, hammer, circular saw, whatever the F tool that you need to build something that you're building around the house, right? This is what this would be. This would not be like a cure-all, I'm going to do it all the time, blah, blah, blah type of a thing. It would be badass to be able to find a card on eBay that you think you want to grade, and you've done all the research, and maybe it's in the formula-based sports, maybe it's in the formula-based sports card rankings at nooffseason.com, and you're like, nooffseason.com rankings project that this is going to be a card that I can make money on, and you go through all the lessons at Sports Card School at nooffseason.com, and you're like, everything lines up. I'm going to make money on this. And maybe speed to the market is a huge thing for this card. Maybe it's a newer card, a newer release, and you want to be first to the market in a PSA 10. Now this is a tool that can maybe save you a few days, because think about it. If you buy a raw card right now, it typically only takes 3 to 5 business days to get to you. And then if you know what you're doing, or you're grading with nooffseason.com as a premium member, it gets to PSA 3 to 5 business days later, right? So that's really 6 to 10 business days. Now, the rest of the speed to the market is going to be, how long does it take PSA to get it back to you, which is still around 30 to 45 days. So do you want to risk? And here's the other thing. If you're a premium member of nooffseason.com and you tell me that you haven't had issues buying cards on eBay that you think were going to grade well, and then you get them in hand and you were like, F, then you're lying to me. You're lying to me, because I know for a fact, like all of you go through bumps in the road and pains when it comes to buying cards on eBay that you think are going to grade well. Because I talk to almost every single one of you not on a daily basis, but I talk to almost every single one of you on a consistent basis, whether it's through the one-on-one program or whether it's through the premium pod. So you know what's up. And what I'm telling you is, you want your cards in hand. I'm going to want my cards in hand. Now, I would also think that there's going to be some logistics that are going to have to happen when they implement this. I don't think it's going to be as simple as like, you buy a raw card and get to submit it directly to eBay. Buy a raw card from eBay and submit it directly to PSA. Why? Because we've also talked about the fact that PSA has tightened the screws a little bit on their terms and conditions, right? So now PSA, to be more efficient on their end in their intake and grading process, they've tightened the screws on, we want you using card savers again, or else we're going to penalize you monetarily, and it's going to slow your submission down if you're sending us stuff in one touches, or you're sending us stuff directly from Topps Now in the jiggler cases and all that stuff. So they're tightening the screws on that. So what happens when, some eBay seller that you buy your card from, has the card in some, old gross screw down case, or some top loader with Scotch tape on it, or some other, like maybe just a penny sleeve or something. So now all of a sudden, what process is eBay and PSA going to have to implement so that PSA make sure that they get those cards submitted to grading the way that they need them submitted to grading? Here's the other thing is, how would it work on like a bulk submission that you want to create? All these are logistical things that definitely need to be implemented and will be implemented by PSA, if I had to guess. So think about like, okay, you want to make a 20 card bulk submission with PSA, and you're buying one card at a time and you're building that bulk submission. How is that going to work? Are they going to implement a queue, like a pre-submission queue for you as a PSA account holder, where cards that you buy from eBay get put in a queue until you meet the minimum and then you submit them? Or do they just go directly into a submission that is saved as a submission, but you can't submit it yet until I guess it would be like 6 of one, half dozen of the other. It'd be about the exact same thing. But I'm thinking through things that I know would be issues from a logistical standpoint. Another thing is the authentication side, right? So like eBay has done a great job working with CGC and other companies to authenticate cards that are purchased over $250 that are not just raw, but also graded on eBay. So I would think that they would have to put in some kind of middleman authentication process of a raw card before it gets to PSA. Otherwise, PSA is going to be taking on a lot of these submissions that we know they don't want. Like, we already know, based on them updating their terms and conditions a few weeks ago, that they're cracking down on a lot of this stuff where it's like they're getting these packages and they're just not packaged right. Look, we've all ordered cards off of eBay. We know how these raw cards come. So now, is that going to be put back on the seller? Is the seller going to be told, okay, now the buyer, you have to ship this to PSA now as the seller because the buyer wants it that way. So now you have to package it this way and submit it to PSA, right? On the buyer's behalf. Now, all these things can be worked out. These things can be added to the shipping label, like the default USPS Ground Advantage shipping label that's going to PSA. But that's the other thing. When you submit a PSA submission, you slap the little PSA barcode, submission barcode on it. So now, is the eBay seller going to have to do that for the buyer who wants it to go directly to PSA? Now, we're early on this discussion, right? But these are all things that I'm thinking through of, wait a minute, it might not be like Neo Cards and Comics says, it might not be the best option. I think it's going to be like the PSA vault, which used to be the eBay vault. And what I mean by that is when PSA and eBay announced that merger and acquisition, I came on this show and I said, it's not going to be an end all be all, always do this. It's going to be another option for us. So do I love it as another option for us? Heck yeah, because it could be more amazing efficiency gained where it's like, oh crap, I want this XYZ, maybe Jaden Daniels, Donruss Optic Preview red ice or whatever the short print is. And it's like, I want to be first to the market with this. Boom, go from eBay directly to PSA. Sweet. If it works, if the process works efficiently, and it doesn't add a bunch of extra fees. That's the other thing. How many extra fees are going to be added? How much is it going to cost for us to do all of this? Because all these little things eat into our profit margin. So, again, props to Neo Cards and Comics. Props to Sports Card Investor for talking to Nat Turner, breaking this news, keeping us updated. You don't come to the Sports Card Strategy Show for breaking news. We are not a breaking news media outlet. We are a strategic analysis. What does all this mean? What should we do with it? Media outlet. We are the analysts and the strategists, and we help you implement those strategies effectively so that you can make money. So this is my initial reaction to, this news from PSA over the past weekend. So with that said, let's get into the live chat, say hello to some folks, and then I'm going to look at the top selling markers of 2025, and I'll explain what I mean by that. Terry Anderson in the house, good to see you. Hoosier card guy. Lynn S. Terry Anderson got his first PSA submission back from me on Saturday. Good to hear, Terry. Love it, man. Again, we're doing bulk grading for our nooffseason.com premium members. Alandis Brassel says he's finally switching to yearly from monthly this week. The premium membership pays for itself. Thank you, Alandis. We love you. We love you. And we may need to reach out to you for a testimonial. Mosaic Joe, if you're listening, Alandis needs to give us a testimonial. He's the man. Chris Law in the house. Carmel Porter, what's up? These are all premium members of nooffseason.com. George Schurer, Jeremy Lee from Sports Card Live. Good to see you. Sports Cards Live. Good to see you, my man. Derek Hagan. We already talked about Derek Hagan. Chad Dyer in the house. What's up, Chad? Good to see you. Justin Forcier. Justin Forcier is a new name in the live chat. He says it's BS that PSA is purchasing cards because they can program it in their system so the consumer gets none of the good deals. Not sure I understand what that means or if I agree with that. I think still, if they offer you the offer, you can say no, right? But if you're going to make money on it, you can say yes, and then they can resell it. I don't see what you mean by program it. Like they would buy it from you and then, they would probably relist it. But the market will determine what they sell it for. PSA is not going to determine what they sell it for. PSA doesn't own eBay. It's not, unless I'm totally thinking of this wrong. Somebody please correct me, but I don't agree with Justin. But Justin, new name. Are you a new listener and this is your first time commenting? Have you listened for a long time? Thanks for your support. Tom DiCaprio in the house. What's going on? Tom's pumped about Soto to the Mets. Sean G, Red 5 Cards in the house. What's up, Red 5? Good to see you. And the Card Society. What's up? Card Society promoting the Premium Fam. Premium Fam, join the Premium Fam. If you don't want to join the Premium Fam, at least tip us. Tipjar.sportscardstrategy.com. Tipjar.sportscardstrategy.com. We don't do this for free. We do this for a living. I'm just going to come out and be honest with you guys. Like, this is a business. We are here to help you, but we want your money. So tipjar.nooffseason.com or join the premium membership. Thanks for consuming the Sports Card Strategy Show. All right. So I mentioned earlier on in the program that you should only buy sports cards with a clear selling marker in mind, whether it's sealed wax, whether it's singles, which 99% of the time you should be buying singles. Don't buy into breaks. Do not buy into breaks. But if you do buy into breaks, like Ziggy has a strategy for buying into breaks. Other people like Ziggy potentially have a strategy for buying into breaks. You want to do like a PYT kind of a thing after a new release comes out, try to be first to the market, blah, 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 get lucky. At least have a strategy for that. But what I'm telling you is have a clear selling marker in mind. Buy singles, but only buy singles with a clear selling marker in mind. Now that's like that's me simplifying it on the Sports Card Strategy Show. I really get into details, obviously, for premium members at nooffseason.com. That's what the whole program is built around. Premium podcast, sports card school, formula-based sports card rankings, all that stuff. So one thing to look at, though, which is interesting, is selling markers coming up in 2025 should be at the forefront of our mind as we're buying cards right now, right? So like, it's buying season. I'm going to get into some of the cards that I'm looking at buying after I talk about this segment of selling markers. But we shouldn't just be looking at buying any cards. We should be looking at buying cards that have selling markers coming up in 2025. Now, I'll give you a few examples of selling markers, because selling markers typically come with events that we know are going to happen on the calendar. Now, there are also performance spikes. Performance spikes is another category of selling markers, but we don't know if and when any performance spikes are ever going to come, and we don't know for which athletes they're going to come. So buying cards based on performance spikes is a lot harder than buying cards based on selling markers. So you also have a bit of a combination of the two, right? Because as you're looking at buying cards for football players, for example, right now, one of the best strategies is to look at what are the quarterbacks that are likely to be left competing in the NFL playoffs, likely the conference championship games or the Super Bowl. Now, it's almost impossible to pick the two quarterbacks that are going to be participating in the Super Bowl this early in December, while we still have most teams eligible to potentially get to the Super Bowl. But the playoff picture is becoming clearer and clearer. And so I think it gets to be a little bit more realistic that you would pick the final 8 or the final 4 quarterbacks that might be left in the NFL playoffs, just based on who's going to make it to the playoffs and who's not. And then if you can pick the final 8, could that be a strategy of, I'm going to go after a few guys that could be in the final 4 or the final 8, but what's the selling marker? Is the selling marker the NFL playoffs? Is it specifically the end of January? Is it specifically the week leading up to the conference championship games? Or is it the Super Bowl? So like, AKA, how do I make money on it? Now, a week ago, I mentioned a bunch of quarterbacks that you could make money on, both with this strategy, but also with a floor of, hey, we just hold them until next August, because they're down so much right now that we just hold them to next August, even if they don't make it to the conference championship games or the Super Bowl. And I got to stop right now real quick and just throw some mad respect and props at Chad Dyer. Chad, thank you so much. Here's what Chad just did. Chad left a tip live on the show through the super chat feature on YouTube. So if you're ever watching live on youtube.com/Paul Hickey and you want to throw a super chat at me, it's super easy. You just click a button, put in how much money you want to donate. Boom. Chad just gave a $20 super chat. Chad, you're the man. Thank you so much. Chad, drop your Instagram handle in the live chat so I can give you some props and have people go check out your Instagram profile for dropping the super chat. That's what I'll do. Anyone who drops a super chat, I'm going to promote your business, your sports card business, your eBay store, whatever you want to throw in there. Chad, throw your eBay store, throw your Instagram handle. Anyone who drops a super chat on the show live gets a instant promo. He is Chad Dyer Cards. So ChadDyerCards, Chad Dyer Cards on Instagram. Go check him out and support Chad Dyer. He's the man. Thank you for the super chat, Chad. And if anyone can't figure out how to do the super chat, maybe Chad can give you some tips in the chat on how to give a super chat. Or you could go to tipjar.sportscardstrategy.com if you're listening on Apple and Spotify and you missed the live chat, that's fine. Just tip us at tipjar.sportscardstrategy.com and go get a free 30-day trial at nooffseason.com. Anyway, let's dig into 4 quarterbacks. These guys were the final 4 quarterbacks last year in the conference championship games. And what I want to look at is like, what's the selling marker, right? So, and what's the better selling marker? Is the better selling marker waiting till the beginning of the next season? Or is the better selling marker selling in the off season? Is there an off season spike based on some hype for some of these guys? So that would be increased opportunity. Or is it threading the needle, as I like to say, and needing a conference championship appearance to make money on some of their cards? So first, we're going to look at Patrick Mahomes and his 2017 Donruss base PSA 9. And the reason we're picking this card is because this is the most sold graded Patrick Mahomes rookie card in the last 365 days. It's a pop 7,035. So I wanted to pick cards that were just very, very realistic at acquiring, basically the every person rookie card for each of these players. So Patrick Mahomes, and if you were to look at what this card sold for, let's say last year around this time, this is a PSA 9. It's around $275 to $299. And then we see in the the week leading up to the conference championship game, it goes up to almost $400. And it starts consistently selling for over $325 leading up to the Super Bowl. Super Bowl week, it goes back up close to $385. It's inching up to $385, which is where it sold after the Super Bowl. And then it actually sold for over $400 several times in April. So, like, I ask you, what's the better selling marker? Is it really the AFC Championship game, or is it more during the NFL draft hype season? Because they drafted Xavier Worthy. You know, they made some offseason moves, right? So then the price of this card continues to increase until it hits a couple of peaks right at the National. The week of the National, it starts selling for over $400 again. And then again, right before the week before the season starts, $480. And then after the season starts, it does dip. Now it still hasn't really gone below $350. You know, people who bought this card this time last year, which is the whole point of this conversation. This pattern is basically validating what I've said all along on previous episodes of the Sports Card Strategy Show, which is right now is buying season. You know, you go out and you buy these cards right now and you're going to make money. Now, I'm not saying, let me get something very, very clear. I'm not saying to go out and buy this particular card, but I'm saying buying this year's version of these cards. So this year's version of these cards, I talked about last Monday. I talked about the Jalen Hurts Optic Holo PSA 10. I talked about some Jordan Love cards, right? Cards that are down that will get some hype again during the offseason and go back up again if the player doesn't even make it to the AFC, NFC championship game or the Super Bowl. So there's multiple selling markers, but if you pick the right card for the right player at the right time, for quarterbacks, the Super Bowl and the conference championship games might not even be the best selling marker. Now, let's dig in further because Mahomes won the Super Bowl. So because Mahomes won the Super Bowl, the pattern might not be the same for everybody. And here it is right here. Brock Purdy, the Super Bowl loser. And you can see right here, the pattern is not the same unless you're the Super Bowl winner, because you can buy the player's card. And in Brock Purdy's case, this time last year, you could get his 2022 Prism 353 base PSA 10, pop 43.20 for right right around $200. It was a $200 card. There was some anomaly sales. Somebody paid $250 for it, but it's right around just under 200 or just over 200, give or take $10, $15 either way. So now this card is a $53 card right now. So if you believe in the powers of the pattern recognition that I've talked about, this would be a great buy. Now, Brock Purdy's not going to make it to the Super Bowl. I mean, we pretty much know that that's not going to happen. If it does happen, given where you could buy this card at this point in time, you're going to make a crap ton of money. So it doesn't matter if I say that they're not going to make it. If you buy this card and they do make it, you made a ton of money. But even if they don't make it, based on the pattern recognition that we see with the off-season spikes, then you should be in good shape. This card sold for $150 randomly in May when there was nothing going on for the NFL. In April, after the NFL draft, it was selling for around over $100. So this is a $53 card right now. But let's go back to what I was saying a minute ago. What did it do in the NFC Championship game in the Super Bowl? It didn't do much. It stayed about where it was back in December. And then when they lost the Super Bowl, it tanked. So we don't know if the pattern for the Super Bowl loser is always going to be this way. I think we did see this pattern with Jalen Hurts, though, when he lost the Super Bowl. We're seeing the pattern with Brock Purdy when he lost the Super Bowl. So what I'm saying is, between the Super Bowl winner and the Super Bowl loser, there's a thin line. You pick the Super Bowl winner now, you've got a ridiculous amount of selling markers. You pick the Super Bowl loser now, you might have to wait a couple of years before it bounces back. Now let's take a look at the conference championship loser cards. So Jared Goff and the Detroit Lions lost in the conference championship to Brock Purdy and the San Francisco 49ers. His 2016 Donruss base PSA 10 popped 735. Probably the easiest PSA 10 of his to find. It's got the most sales in the last 365 days. That's why I pulled it. It's up 72% over the last year. Last year at this time. And he was the NFC conference championship loser. So during the NFC championship game, this card went up from $50 where it sold around this time last year. And when he was still playing, it doubled in price. But then when he lost the Super Bowl, it went back down to being around a $50 card. And now as he's played better throughout this season, leading the Lions to the top record in the NFC as of now, although the Vikings are nipping at their heels, and so are the Eagles. Now it's back up double where it was this time last year. So this could be player specific, but there is a pattern here. When you are a conference championship loser, the hobby has started to show that there is a little bit more upside for you. The hobby is more willing to prospect on you coming back the following year and making it to the Super Bowl. But it's really winning the Super Bowl that's going to drive your card prices. Or it's going to be the hype around you potentially being a quarterback that could win your first Super Bowl. So now, should you buy Jared Goff? Should you buy like this Jared Goff card now? That's the question, right? You could buy the Brock Purdy card now, but I think you'd have to wait until way past the Super Bowl to sell it back for maybe $80, $90 to $100. I think you'd maybe have to wait until next August to sell the Brock Purdy card. Or not. Maybe it spikes in April due to some offseason hype, some moves and things like that. I think Jared Goff's going to have to make it to the Super Bowl for this card to go up. I really do. I don't like if he doesn't make it to the Super Bowl, this card plummets. And if he does make it to the Super Bowl, that's when you should sell it. Because then if he doesn't win the Super Bowl, it's going down for this particular card. Now, if we go to the AFC loser, Lamar Jackson, his most sold rookie PSA 10 over the last 365 days is his 2018 Donruss 317 base. And it's this time last year was a $77 card. Now it's been consistently just over $100. It's 108. 365 day average 109. But it is up 30% from where you could have bought it from last year. And again, what is he? He's the conference championship loser. He did win the MVP. When he made it all the way to the conference championship, this card sold for $215. Not an anomaly sale because it also sold for 167, 154, 157, 155, 167, 155. So it did more than double in price in 2 months from when people bought it in December to when they sold it leading into the conference championship game. So the answer to the question of what's the best selling marker, it's the conference championship game. You need to sell. You basically need to do one of two things. You needed to pick a player, a quarterback from a team, get their most liquid PSA 10, and you need to pick a quarterback from a team that you think has a good chance of making it to the conference championship game. And then, like I said, get their most liquid PSA 10. And then you need to be prepared to sell it during conference championship week if they make it there. That's the plan. If they don't make it there, the strategy is to hold it until NFL draft hype season and sell it then, because chances are it will go up. The reason why is because they were at one point good enough to have made it to the conference championship, didn't make it, and then added pieces in the offseason that gave their fan base and the overall NFL fan base and football card market enough reason to believe, aka hype, that they could potentially win their first Super Bowl next year, thus driving their card prices up. So you're looking for guys that haven't won a Super Bowl yet. And you're looking at Lamar Jackson, Jared Goff. You're probably looking at Jalen Hurts. You might even be looking at Sam Darnold right now. But I think when you look at a guy like Sam Darnold, you got to be very, very careful. He's in a different category. Why? Because of J.J. McCarthy. Like, he's not necessarily their guy next year. So you can't necessarily bank on the fact that Sam Darnold's cards have a good offseason. You can bank on the fact that Lamar Jackson's cards, if he doesn't make it there, probably have a good offseason. You can bank on the fact that if Jared Goff doesn't make it to the Super Bowl, but plays well, his cards probably have a good offseason because the Lions keep adding pieces to try to get back to their goal of being the Super Bowl champs. Same with Jalen Hurts. So don't go too deep and don't spend too much money on this strategy. But I think you're looking at the top selling markers for NFL cards other than the conference championship being the NFL draft hype cycle season, which is interesting because one of the other selling markers that I wanted to evaluate here is the NFL draft. And I wanted to do it with college cards. So one play that we like to make here at nooffseason.com and the Sports Card Strategy Show is buying cards of the top college quarterbacks, because the top college quarterbacks have multiple selling markers ahead. They might have the Heisman Trophy. They might have the college football playoffs. They might have the college football national championship. They might have the NFL draft. They have the start of their next college football season. They have all kinds of potential selling markers that we know on the calendar are going to happen. The NFL draft being one of them. So what I want to do now is I want to look at how did a few guys' cards perform that had good performances during their final college football season and also were drafted in the NFL draft. And I want to compare the sales from their good college performances to the sales of the same card during the NFL draft season for them. And the reason I want to do this is because coming up this year, we're going to have guys like Shedeur Sanders, Cam Ward, possibly Jalen Milroe, possibly Quinn Ewers. And a lot of these guys are still playing right now. So it could answer the question of, do you want to hold a lot of these guys' cards until the NFL draft? Or do you want to sell them now? Or if you're not holding any of their cards, do you want to wait until a certain point before the NFL draft to buy them and then make money during the NFL draft? Is that possible? So we're just going to look at some historical data. We're going to pull up Caleb Williams' 2022 Bowman Chrome University PSA 10. And it's a base card. It's a pop 1068. And we're going to look at the last 365 days worth of sales. And the reason we're going to look at this card is because the guys that I just mentioned either have this exact card or an equivalent of this card. Like Quinn Ewers doesn't have it exactly, but he has a Saturday Stars rated rookie auto, from Panini Prism. He's got similar like rated prospect type cards. So when you look at Caleb Williams, you go back to the NFL draft, and leading up to the NFL draft, this card sold for $97. It sold for $90, $80, $82. So it was between an $80 and a $100 card. Let's say between an $80 and a $95 card, just to narrow the range. If you would have sold it at the NFL draft, right around like leading up to April's NFL draft or that week of the NFL draft. And this time last year, it was a $68 card. So the opportunity exists to buy this card for, say, Shedeur Sanders, maybe even Travis Hunter, maybe even Cam Ward. Although, these guys haven't made it to the college football playoffs, so maybe there's been some mystique that's worn off of them a little bit, but maybe that's a good reason why you could get their cards a little bit cheaper potentially right now. So look for auctions, right? But the question is, do you do it now or do you do it later? Like, what's the opportunity here? Well, look at the pattern of this Caleb Williams card, because after it dips after the NFL draft to the point where he's the first overall pick. You can get it consistently for $40 in June and July because nobody cares about this card anymore. But then as soon as Caleb Williams starts playing in NFL games in the preseason and there's hype around his debut, this card all of a sudden goes up over $100. What does this mean? This means it's potentially safer to wait until June, July to buy the 2025 equivalent of Caleb Williams, aka Shedeur Sanders, Cam Ward, etc., and then sell those guys in late August. But make sure that it's this card. Make sure it's their Bowman Chrome University first prospect base PSA 10. And then if you go to the all data chart to take it back a little further, you see where this card really sold for the most. It really sold for the most when Caleb Williams was on his Heisman tear. $109. That was a long time ago. This card's been out for a long time. So I think there's some opportunity if you follow the selling marker strategy of not necessarily the NFL draft, but rather the start of their first season in the preseason leading up to their regular season debut. Now let's see if the same thing happened with Drake May's same card. And I did not do this before the show, so I'm doing this for the first time right now. And Drake May's card is from a year later, 2023 Bowman Chrome University Prospects. So it's from a full year later. So we may see a different pattern, or we might see a similar pattern. So the last 365 days of this card, this time last year was right when it first came out, which is interesting. Only $45. So the NFL draft brought a more of like a $65 price tag. So it did go up a little bit. But then again, you could have bought it for $15.50 in late May. You could have bought it for $20.50 in late June, $28 in July. And then as he got ready to play his first NFL game, all of a sudden it's $65, $50, $50, $55, you know. And now that he's a starter, it's pretty much consistently a $50 to $60 card. So the takeaway from the Bowman Chrome University first prospect cards, and we'll have to really dig into what Shedeur Sanders' pricing is, and Cam Ward and some of the other guys, is maybe the best selling marker for these particular cards is the NFL preseason. But you got to get rid of them, because then the new releases start to come out. All right, so we're going to go to baseball now, and let's look at some of the top prospects from last year. And I just want to compare March specifically, which we call baseball hype season, versus like when they made their MLB debut. But first I want to look at Juan Soto, because Juan Soto obviously just signed with the New York Mets. It's big news. It's interesting. Selling marker a lot of times is when players move teams. So let's look at like Juan Soto's cards that have sold in the last 2 days since this announcement was made. And let's look at, have they moved, like, has this announcement moved the card more than like previous things that have happened for Juan Soto? So like his 2018 Topps Update base PSA 9 is a good card to look at, because it's a pop 97.74. And it's a pretty low price card, but it is up. So it's up 62% since this news of him going to the Mets. But if you look at all data, let's look at like when this card, you know, has moved in the past. So to do that, you really got to look more at like when the first recorded sale of this card in PSA 9 was $27.21. And that was in the beginning of 2020. So January 5th, 2020. Then you had like the overall sports card boom. And the sports card boom brought it up all the way up to $133, which was right at the beginning, the end of Q1 of 2021, which was really when most people were spending the most amount on sports cards, and most sports cards were at their peak. So then the bubble kind of pops. This card comes back down to earth as like a $50 card. Things that then drive it are when he moves to the Padres, it moves a little bit. That was in 2023, right? So it moves a little bit in 2023, but not much. It basically remains like a $15 to $30 card throughout any particular event, and then it jumps to a $33 card upon the news. So now would be a great time to sell this card, and now would be a great time to look at selling most of your Juan Soto cards, especially if they're like higher pop count base cards, things like that. So just wanted to indulge the Juan Soto enthusiasts real quick, and then let's get to some of the prospects. So Jackson Holiday we'll look at first, and we're going to look at his 2022 Bowman Draft Chrome first PSA 10. And what I really wanted to look at here are a few different things in terms of selling markers. Is it better to sell and be first to the market, or is it better to wait until maybe there's more hype around a player, or is it better to wait until they actually get called up and make their MLB debut? So the key dates for this are first recorded sale, first to the market sale of this card, April 2nd, 2023, which makes sense because it came out in December 2022, took a few months to get graded at PSA, sold for $78, sold later that month for $96, and topped out later that summer for $126. So that would be kind of like first to the market Jackson Holiday sales. Then he goes through a bit of an off-season dip where it goes back down to 105, which is still more than it sold for first to the market. And then it sold for 143, basically leading into March, which is like the hype cycle, 143. Then he gets called up, makes his debut, and it goes down. So now it's down. I don't know that this is coming back up again, guys. Baseball doesn't work like football. I'll tell you that. But it's interesting to look at, baseball card selling markers being March, leading into March. Now let's see if a similar pattern for Jackson Chourio takes shape here. So his same card, the 2022 Bowman. Now this isn't from Bowman Draft. It came out in 2022 Bowman, but it's the same card, Chrome Prospect First. If we go all data for this one, the first to the market sold for $200, and that was in late August of 2022. So that was first to the market PSA 10. Then it comes down to earth, establishes a real market value of more like around $40 to $50. And in like kind of an off-season dip, you start to see it selling for 43. And then it goes into March and it's selling for 60. Okay. Then it dips. So we're seeing the same pattern, even as Jackson Chourio makes his MLB debut, etc. It dips. So again, I don't know that you can necessarily replicate this with these players, but who do you want to replicate it with? You want to replicate it with the next best thing, which would be maybe your Roman Anthony's, maybe your Max Clark's, maybe it's the Bowman Draft versions of your Travis Bazanas, right? Or your Jack Caglianones. Wyatt Langford, we'll look at Wyatt Langford because I think we need to look at Wyatt Langford to see if Bazana or Caglianone or any of those guys would follow a similar pattern to Langford. So Langford was interesting though because he hit the bigs right away, but I think we could still look at him as well just to give us a different perspective from Holiday and Chourio. Although I think Holiday and Chourio still stand good examples as maybe what to do with like the Roman Anthony's and, the Max Clarks and things like that. And we may take a minute and look at Paul Skeens. We've got time. You guys want me to look at Paul Skeens? I think we should look at Paul Skeens also. All right. First to the market, Wyatt Langford 2023 Bowman Draft first Chrome PSA 10 was this must have been a quick grading turnaround at PSA. Like they must have paid for like a 2-week turnaround because it was December 27th and it had just come out like 10 days earlier. It sold for $160. Then it goes down to $70, right? We're familiar with that pattern. Then March, $121. Then he makes his debut. It goes down. It starts going down. So I think, the takeaway here is we're looking at March. And then I think we might have an exception to the rule here, but we'll see. And that's Paul Skeens. So let's look at Paul Skeens 2023 Bowman draft, same card. This again is the first prospect PSA 10 Chrome. So we go all data. First to the market, $153, which was about a month after the release. First to the market PSA 10. It dips after that. Dips down to 81. You get it actually in March for 80, 72. So yeah, this is an anomaly, and this is the performance spike. So this card, All-Star break, this is when Paul Skeens has set the world on fire and starts in the All-Star game as a rookie. This card sells for $360. So it's an anomaly. This is the performance spike selling marker, but I think the lesson here, the takeaway is not everybody's going to do what Paul Skeens did, right? So if you're looking for probably the best selling marker for baseball prospects, it's going to be March. So I mean, quick recap, NFL quarterbacks, best selling markers are conference championship game. If that doesn't happen, April, NFL draft hype. If that doesn't happen, August. Okay. College quarterbacks, best strategy is, and again, tipjar.sportscardstrategy.com. This is all free information. So tip us, tipjar.sportscardstrategy.com. This one will make you money, guaranteed. College quarterback, Bowman Chrome first, PSA 10. Wait till late June to buy it, and then sell it in, because you know who the guys are at that point. We don't know who they are right now. We can guess, but in late June, we'll know. We'll know who the first overall quarterback was. We'll know if the first overall pick was a quarterback, all that stuff. And then you go buy those guys' cards in late June, July, and then you sell them. Not those guys' cards. They're PSA 10 Bowman Chrome first. And then you sell them in the NFL preseason. That's a moneymaker. And then the March for baseball prospects, sell them in March. Don't wait for their MLB debut. Even Paul Skeens didn't pop off until a performance spike. He didn't pop off at his MLB debut. It took massive performances. Okay, one sport left, basketball. I've been very interested to dig into this one, and so I'm gonna look at like first time / second time All-Stars. Tyrese Halliburton, first time All-Star. His most sold PSA 10 was his 2020 Prism. And it's a pop 1445. So it's not a super desirable card, but it's very liquid. And with liquidity comes a lot of opportunity to make money, right? So first to the market sale on this was $62. And if we go on the 365-day chart, we've got last year's pricing around this time at $83. Remember, he had just played really well in the in-season tournament. In late January 29th, it sold for $120. So the NBA All-Star game for this gentleman, it sold for $79. So the NBA All-Star game was not a selling marker. Now, if we go to the NBA playoffs, heading into the NBA playoffs, it sold for $91. During the NBA playoffs, it sold for $72. So really, the early season Tyrese Halliburton interest kind of took away the ability for his cards to spike at the NBA All-Star game or the playoffs. Now, if we go to Paolo Banchero, another first-time NBA All-Star last year, we pull up his 2022 Prism Base PSA 10. Pop 1279, so very similar to Halliburton. First to the market sale was back on June 4th, 2023, $96. It came down from there. And then this time last year, this card sold for $39. And as we approached the NBA All-Star break, it sold for $55. So there was first-time NBA All-Star Paolo Banchero, buy low in December, sell at All-Star break. But then NBA playoffs, 72, 69. So a little bit more during the NBA playoffs. Now, obviously, this is going to be different based on different cards. I mean, if you had a lower serial numbered or an auto or something like that for Paolo Banchero, you probably would have seen a bigger difference between the All-Star break and the playoffs. Like let's do this. Like, here's a good example. Anthony Edwards, another first-time All-Star, I believe last year, first or second-time All-Star. Doesn't really matter. It's just for the sake of discussion here. And they're all very similar types of players in terms of how far they are into their NBA career and how hyped up they've been in the hobby. But something a little different happened for Anthony Edwards than it did for the other guys. His 365-day chart basically starts at a $62 price for his 2020 base Prism PSA 10, Pop 5372. It jumps all the way. We know it jumps up due to his playoff performance. So when you can have a playoff performance like he did, it's up to almost $400 during the playoffs. The question is, did it go up during the All-Star break? Well, 105. So yeah. I mean, if you were the one who got it for 62, somebody also paid 108. Somebody paid 73. So somebody overpaid last December. That's kind of an anomaly. Last December, it was basically on average a $70 card. So closer to the All-Star break for Anthony Edwards, it was more of a $100 card. But then in the playoffs, $400 card. You see the pattern there. Now, I was going to say, like, what about his Prism Silver? His Prism Silver did the same thing. His Prism Base and his Prism Silver did the same thing. So if a player really, really goes off in the playoffs, that's really how to make money in the NBA. I mean, that's really how to do it. So comparing those three young players, I think gives us enough of a sample size of data. Thanks for sticking with me through all that. I know it's a lot of data, but the takeaway there for the NBA is that, you know, really the selling marker is the playoffs. You know, it's risky to try to pick a guy in December and say, oh, this is going to be their first All-Star game, I'm going to make money on him. The reason it's risky is because there's just not a lot of upside with that. You really need to be thinking about, I need to pick a player in December that's going to make a playoff run. That's how you need to make money. That's what you need to do to make money on NBA cards, which honestly is really hard to do. And that's part of the reason why I've faded a lot of NBA cards. Now, basketball that I am buying, Caitlin Clark, you know, we're going to add some of these cards into the formula that I'm about to talk about. Jake's in the lab working on it right now. But 2024 Select WNBA Concourse Raw, the raw to grade on that right now, without running it through the formula, you've got $123 upside in a PSA 10. Got to be fast, though, because I believe that, you know, as more Caitlin Clark cards become available and as the pop count rises, this is a newer release. This is a speed play. I wouldn't overpay for like quicker grading at PSA, but I would just be aware of the fact that the value of these cards are going to go down. Her premier level, 151 premier level, is $23 raw and $136 in a PSA 10. The draft night instant is still a good one. Making sure that you buy them with the Scotch tape still on them. A lot of these have not been graded. Like there's over 38,000 of these that exist that have not been graded. The print run was like 42,000 and there's only pop 4,100 in a PSA 10. And there's much less than that in the other PSA 9, PSA 8, etc. So $72 raw and $80 PSA 9 $240 in a PSA 10. You don't even really get killed on a PSA 8, $64. So I'm looking at that. And then her 2024 Select Concourse Silver Raw, $79 raw, and $370 in a PSA 10. So a lot more upside on the silver raw. Got to be a lot more sure of the grade, the potential grade. And then the silver flash, $88 raw and $711 in a PSA 10 and $103 in a PSA 9. So the silver flash short print, going to be hard to get, but definitely a play. Now, if we go to another basketball player that I'm looking at buying, Michael Jordan, a lot more expensive, but like his 1985 Nike promo PSA 9 is down $716 in the last 14 days. So like if I can get one, I've always wanted that card, by the way. It's a sick card. It's oversized card, but it's sick. The Nike promo from 1985. It's down $716. So there's already like profit built in. His 1986 Fleer base PSA 8.5 is down $1,000. So in theory, there's profit built into that. It's tougher with BGS cards because you got subgrades and everything. The PSA 9, I mean, you still have eye appeal with this card, which could throw you off, but it's down $3,600. I mean, I don't have $17,000 to drop on it, but that's interesting that there's profit built into that card right now. Here's one though, PSA 1. The PSA 1 is down $475. I need to start digging into the cards like the 1985 Star Crunch and Munch All-Stars in BGS 9. Get those BGS slabs, crack them, submit them to PSA. The only problem is like they're super hard to find and they're very expensive, thousands of dollars to get those. But Michael Jordan, 1987 Fleer base, affordable card in BGS 8.5 down $170. So subgrades and stuff, but probably some profit built into that. And then going over to baseball, Shohei Ohtani, 2018 Topps Chrome Update rookie debut pink refractor. Great card. I mean, pop 572, might be able to find it. Low pop, down $179. Perfect time to buy a card like that. Should go back up. It should just go back up. There's already $180 profit margin built into that. Another one, 2018 Bowman Chrome base batting PSA 10. Not as much profit margin built in, but easier to find. Down $46. $820 card. If we look at the charts for this one, this is a great one to look at the charts for. So just look at the 365-day chart for this fucker. It's going to get me excited and looking to start buying this. This time last year, 663. Today, 820. But let's look at what it was in March. In March, it was 826. He didn't even do anything, right? 880 last day of February. So this is a great card. This is just so safe. It's so safe to buy that. So that's where my head's at, everybody, in terms of selling markers, buying. Really excited to have you with me today on the Sports Card Strategy Show. Thanks for all of you who participated in the live chat. Thanks to Chad Dyer for dropping the $20 super chat. If you missed the super chat or you're really always unable to make the live show, it's totally fine. This show is actually more made for the podcast apps, Apple and Spotify. If you want to tip us, go to tipjar.sportscardstrategy.com. We'd really appreciate it. We help you make money flipping sports cards. What we really want you to do is join the premium fam. Get a free 30-day trial today at nooffseason.com. Lefty and I are going to be bringing it strong on Wednesday. We got a great show planned, a little preview of what 2025 is going to look like for Lefty and I. Everybody have a great day. Thanks so much for being here with us on the Sports Card Strategy Show. If you enjoyed the content on today's show, there's plenty more waiting for you at nooffseason.com. Just go to nooffseason.com right now and get a free 30-day trial. You get our formula-based sports card rankings, sports card school, inventory tracker, the ability to grade with us, and the premium podcast where we answer an unlimited amount of your questions. Check it out right now at nooffseason.com. For everyone at nooffseason.com, I'm Paul Hickey. Thanks again for being here with us on the Sports Card Strategy Show. We'll see you again soon. Have a great day.